and welcome to Racker 6.0.3 Prot Warrior Guide. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into talents and glyphs and stuff like that. So, alright, the first tier is not really too hard to decide. If there are adds in the fight that you want to stun, you know, say they cast a spell very often that you'd like to interrupt, or other such reasons, you can go ahead and get Wardbringer. By default, these are all of my default talents. Double time is going to be the best usually, because in PvE, like I've said before, you're either going to be moving at a consistent rate, you know, maybe you're running from something, you're going to be doing bursts of movement. Either the boss moved and you gotta relocate yourself, or there's adds that you need to relocate to, or you're just gonna be stationary. Alright, so that really whittles out Juggernaut in raid content. Now in instances and dungeons, yeah, Juggernaut's nice. Keep the show going. Honestly, you could still use double time though, because it'll give you those two charges. But if there are adds in a fight, you know, don't forget about Juggernaut. Yeah, that's the most important thing. Alright, tier 2. Default is enrage regeneration, and the reason for that is because I use unyielding strikes, my GCDs are not as open as they used to be, so I don't have the time to use impending victory. You know, that's not really an option for me. You know, it can work, especially on fights like the Butcher, where you're going to want that, you know, passive heal, but even on the Butcher, I still prefer enraged regen, because I want to keep my DPS as high as possible, and spending a global on impending victory can set you behind, you know. So just keep that in mind. Second wind is not viable in any situation at all. I feel like no warrior should ever take this talent. Like I explained before, when you're at 35% health, it would have to be 100% leech in order for it to even be worth it. Like, I honestly feel like it'd have to be 100%, even 50. You know, really wouldn't do that much. Because now that you have to be in the action, you know, you can't just run around with second wind and benefit from it. You have to stay in the action. And if you're in the action at 35% health, in some cases, that's just one auto attack from death. So you really don't want your healers to let you get that low. Now, on specific fights like Heroic, well, I guess it's not just Heroic, but a Nubarak, TOC, you know, this would be amazing, because it would be passive heals basically throughout the entire fight. But there are not any current fights that I can see where you would need this talent. So, also you can use this while stunned, and it's just one button press. It costs no rage at all, and that's why I'm really loving this right now. I'm really loving it. The next tier is really kind of up to you. I will say that I view Sudden Death as the worst talent in this tier, because it requires you spend another GCD, and it's not always going to be there, and I've noticed that sometimes it can proc in very terrible spots, and you're just like, well, damn, I wish this would have waited, but it didn't. So you're going to want to go with Heavy Repercussions or Unyielding Strikes. Unyielding Strikes is the higher DPS talent on fights where you're going to be able to maintain the buff. If there are going to be a lot of fights where, you know, you'll be able to do some damage, but then you're going to have to wait, do some damage, then wait, or there's a lot of movement or downtime from the boss, Heavy Repercussions is going to be better. And the reason for that is you're going to keep your shield block buff up anyway. Alright? And if you're not going to be able to maintain these stacks, you're simply not going to be able to benefit from the talent. So on fights when you're not going to be able to keep the stacks up, go with Heavy Repercussions. But in any other situation where you can easily maintain these stacks without too much trouble, you know, it's okay if they fall off once or twice during a fight. But, you know, if there's a lot of time when you're not on the boss, such as Karath, because you're going to have to, as soon as you get the deal off, you have to run out of the group. So that's a lot of time when you're not going to be able to benefit from this talent. However, whenever you taunt the boss back and you're tanking, you're going to be using all of your shield blocks, so you're just going to naturally be benefiting from Heavy Repercussions. So this really is situational, but usually I like Unyielding Strikes just for the higher DPS. Alright, in this talent, we got Stormbolt, Shockwave, Dragon's Roar. For dungeons and stuff like that, you're gonna want to get Shockwave because it is going to reduce your damage. And also, if you're able to use it on 3 or more targets, it's going to do more damage than Dragon's Roar. Now, Stormbolt is very situational. If you need a stun ad, you should get this, but other than that, don't even consider it. Dragon's Roar is the highest single target DPS, so keep that in mind. And it is what I actually usually go for. And I might be raiding tonight, hopefully, so I'm going to go ahead and pick that up now. On this talent, okay, so this really is dependent on how things are going to go. For the first boss of Highball, I like to get this, because with Impale, I use this on my other tank, and he, takes less damage, obviously. However, on fights like the Butcher, you want Safeguard. Okay, you need Safeguard because every time it's up, you can use this in one of your own personal cooldowns, such as Demoralizing Shout, and it really helps reduce the damage that the tanks are taking. Right? Because there's Hateful Strikes, you're taking consistent damage. So, if you intervene one of those attacks, it's not going to throw the heals off. It's just that damage that your other tank was going to take for that one attack, you're going to take. Now keep in mind, you can intercept abilities like the Tenderizer from the Butcher. So if you have 2 stacks and you use this, that can result in a one-shot, so be careful. I had to find that out. I didn't die, it just, me and Haas, the DK tank that I tank with, we handle things very well, so we didn't wipe, but, the situation can arise where this can put you in a bad pinch. So, in times when you want a bigger reduction and you are going to not need it as often, such as I use it every second Impale, I use Vigilance on Haas. Yes, I could get Safeguard, but it's not needed. The 30% just during an Impale is so much better than the 20% throughout the fight, in my opinion, because the first Impale he's not going to die from, guaranteed. The second Impale is where a lot of the damage is, and that's why I get Vigilance for that. I feel like I spent a lot of time explaining that, so I'm just going to move on to this tier. Very rarely are you ever going to get Avatar. Only if there is a very small window of time when you can burst are you going to get Avatar. And that is going to be almost never. Bladestorm is only for massive amounts of ads, and even then, I don't like it. And the reason why I don't like it for tanking is because you cannot use, you can taunt and use your defensives and shield block, but you cannot generate rage or maintain unyielding strikes while you're Bladestorming, Yeah, if there's a lot of ads, but even on Tectis, I prefer Bloodbath, just because I want to be able to generate as much rage to knock some motherfuckers around with heroic strikes, you know what I'm saying? So Bladestorm is a very situational ability that, it's going to take a very specific fight for me to ever pick Bladestorm, besides just, for, just dungeons or something like that, to be honest. Now, the last tier is really, this is a beautiful tier. Every single talent has its place. In heavy AoE, especially if there's going to be a lot of ads, Ravager is actually good because it gives you 30% parry for 11 seconds. Alright, so you're going to want to keep that in mind. It's not just a damage cooldown, alright? Keep that in mind. Gladiator's Resolve, Gladiator Stance is nothing for you. However, 5% additional reduction in Gladiator Stance. Alright, I'm going to explain my view on tanking. If you end a fight, and you have Gladiator's Resolve, and you do not take enough damage from a single hit to kill you in one shot without taking Gladiator's Resolve, and your healers are at higher than 0% mana, this talent was pointless, okay? You should utilize your healers and their mana as much as humanly possible. If it is possible for them to heal you without Gladiator's Resolve, you are hurting your raid by not having the DPS from anger management. This is the best single target DPS talent, and this is what I go by default. Now, not only does it increase your DPS, but as you can see, it reduces your Demoralizing Shout, Shield Wall, and Last Stand. It lets you use your defensive cooldowns more. I really like this on fights like Butcher because you have to have high DPS, for one. The sooner the fight ends, the better things are. Now, since you want to be using your cooldowns for Tenderizer, you can easily pump out demoralizing shouts and shield walls like it's nothing. Because you're going to be spending so much rage, you know, blocking and heroic striking, it really adds up. I mean, if you have not tried this talent, try this talent, go tank a boss, and just realize how good it feels. Now, something I want to talk about, you know, I'm done talking about the talents, but this is a wombo combo. Unyielding Strikes, Dragon Roar, Bloodbath, and Anger Management. The reason why these all work together is just on Anger Management, it reduces Bloodbath and Dragon's Roar. Alright? Now, when Bloodbath is up, if you can get 4 or 6 Unyielding Strikes before you use Bloodbath, dude, once you use Bloodbath, you're going to be spamming Heroic Strike. And it's basically kind of like how Colossal Smash Arms used to work. You would just save up, well, I guess, Fury, Colossal Smash Fury. You save up all of your burst and just, you know, unload it whenever it's going to be the most beneficial. You know, line up all your cooldowns that you can with Bloodbath. And you're going to be able to use Bloodbath a lot sooner than all of your other cooldowns because of Anger Management. So you're going to want to spam the fuck out of Bloodbath. But whenever you're spamming Heroic Strike, it is going to add up to an insane amount. I think I have, on some fights, this 30 to 40% uptime on Bloodbath. It is ridiculous. Like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Alright, so that's pretty much it for the talents. So let's move over to the Glyphs. So, on any boss when there's more than one target, cleave. You know, this is ridiculous. Especially with Unyielding Strikes, the amount of damage that you do is horrifically good. On Tectis, you know, I was heroic striking so much on that fight. It was ridiculous. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these others. Anytime when you can interrupt, you're going to want to demand that you are the first interrupt. Alright, I don't care if a rogue is the best kicker in the world. 6% increased damage for 20 seconds is ridiculous. You want to get this. Alright, even if you're not good at interrupting, you need to learn to interrupt just so you can get higher on the damage meter, to be honest. Now that Charge Weaving is gone, you're not going to want to get this by default, but if you're going to be doing a heroic or something like this, or there's going to be a lot of adds in a fight, this is a great glyph to get. Now let's look at some of the others. Blitz is not really going to be too useful. However, if there are adds, it can be useful, especially if you combine it with Warbringer. Covered Bull Rush, Covered Cleave, Death from Above. I've not found a use for this just because I don't like how small the range is. Like, yeah, the reduced cooldown is nice, but it only gives you a slight DPS, and quite often you're not going to be able to use this as a tank because you're going to have to reposition yourself, or you're going to need your leap to be a far distance, such as Korath, where you want to, as soon as you see the cast of Expel Harm Arcane, you want to fucking already be on the other side of the map. Alright, and this glyph does not allow you to do that. So keep that in mind. Enraged Speed, oh goodness, this is a great, especially if there's a lot of movement. As I've said before, this makes it so you have a 30-second cooldown on a 20% sprint. It's not a bad talent, especially whenever you're going to be critting with your Shield Slam and your Devastates. Oh man, running 20% faster is a great thing. Unless there's a lot of adds, this is completely useless. You know, I wouldn't even really get this for dungeons because you have to get the Killing Blow in order for the 30 rage to even matter. So keep that in mind. This is great if it did not interfere with Rude Interruption. If you have to choose between this and Rude Interruption, always go with Rude Interruption. Hindering Strikes you're never going to use because anytime when you would want to be able to slow, you can simply hamstring. So there's no reason to pick this glyph up. Long Charge is really not needed in any situation. 5 yards is not a lot. This is more of a PvP talent. Now, Resonating Power is great on AoE fights, especially like Tectis. Because you're going to want to keep your Deep Wounds debuff up. And if you're doing more damage every time you reapply that, that is good. This is a direct increase in DPS on some fights, so look at that. Shield Slam is great. Anytime there's a spell effect, unless it has to be spells stolen and not dispelled, you want to get this glyph. This is especially great in challenge modes and dungeons. This is really, you know, currently there's no fight where you're going to need a 2-minute 60% reduction in damage. Because if you need something that big, usually there's going to be other people to throw you a cooldown anyway, on top of the fact that just using this 2 times for 40% is better than 1 time for 60 in most cases. However, in the future there may be boss fights where you have to just absorb 1 gigantic attack, and you might want this. So always keep some of these glyphs in the back of your mind, alright? It's just most of them are useless right now. Sprout Flex, not too useful. Most glyphs will outshine it. Unending Rage is great. When you don't need any other glyph, get this glyph, because it will allow you to manage your rage a lot better. And above that, it lets you pool your rage so that you can unload all of it at key points in a fight. This is not really particularly useful unless you're using Impending Victory. Then you should get this if it is a high movement fight where you're not always going to be in melee range of a mob. Victory Rush is... this is really only... not even dungeons. This is just a world, because you have to kill the mob. And if you cannot guarantee that you will kill the mob, this is just like the execute glyph. It does nothing at all. So, don't be using that. This can be helpful in some fights like Tectis, how the ads sometimes spread out. However, I just use Dragon Roar for that when the motes come out instead of this glyph. So it's not really too useful, but there are probably going to be fights in the future where it's going to be useful. This one is good for movement. This one is insanely good if there is man, I should actually got that on Karath, to be honest, because whenever the ads come out, I could have just thrown this down for Haas. Oh my goodness, making a video, learning things. That's what I'm talking about. Alright, now all of this stuff, these glyphs really don't matter. The only ones that matter are Weapon Master, because you can have cool weapons. And, where is it? Oh, Bloody Healing is... I take this just because I believe that you should be using bandages. Like, even if you get 1 tick of a bandage off, if you would otherwise be just standing there, this glyph will benefit. You should always be using a bandage when you can. I don't understand why people don't. Intimidating Shout. I like this for dungeons, because when I fear something, I usually am fearing to interrupt a cast, or to fear it and stop the damage for a short time. I don't want to fear it and have it go off to the other side of the dungeon, pulling 12 packs of mobs and wiping us even more. Alright, that's why I really like this glyph. That pretty much covers all of the talents and glyphs, so I'm going to go over the opening rotations. I'm just going to show you guys real quick my 2 different, well, basically the first decision you have to make in a boss fight is going to be, are you going to heroic leap in, or do you want to charge? Hero charge. And this deciding factor between hero charging and just heroic leaping is if you want to maintain boss position and you heroic leap directly on top of them, the boss will not move. Because the boss is not aggroed until your animation for heroic leap is finished. So once you land, you're already going to be at the boss's feet, he's going to be attacking you, and everything's going to be fine. However, if you can, you want to charge just for the extra rage for your opening rotation. Now the opening rotation, there are 2 main opening rotations, and I'm going to, I'll show those right now.
Hey guys, okay, so these are going to be the opening rotations, and the first one I'm going to show is a burst threat rotation, and the reason why I had to devise this is because Haas is an asshole sometimes. Alright, so that was the opening rotation. As you can see, I started off with a Demoralizing Shout and a Dragon Roar Bloodbath combo. Now the reason why I started the fight off with Dragon's Roar Bloodbath is because it is my threat opener. Alright, you're not trying to mitigate damage. However, I use Demoralizing Shout in the beginning so that all the rage I spend is going to shave the cooldown off, along with my Dragon's Roar and Bloodbath. Now, as you see, anger management is insane. It lets you use these cooldowns a lot, guys. I really suggest you try this talent out if you've not already. Now, after I hero charge in and use my Dragon's Roar, Bloodbath, all those cooldowns, and Demoralizing Shout, I go right into my normal rotation while maintaining my Unyielding Strikes buff. And something that I want to make sure, as soon as you have Rage, you want to not be without some kind of mitigation. So as soon as Demoralizing Shout's off, you should already have Shield Block on, or be very close to having it on. That's very important in these fights, guys, because since you have 2 charges of Shield Block, as long as one of them is on cooldown, it is recharging. But if you have both up, like, look, neither of them are recharging. I cannot get a 3rd stack, so always keep at least one on cooldown. Remember that. Alright, so this next one is just going to be my, well, I probably should, oh no, I'll just use Shield Block. The next rotation is going to be my damage mitigation rotation. It's going to be very similar to this one, except you're going to prioritize getting a Shield Block up immediately, and you're going to save your Dragon's Roar and Bloodbath for when you have 4 stacks of Unyielding Strikes. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Okay, so as you see, I used Hero Charge into Shield Slam, Revenge, and Shield Block as soon as you can. Devastate if you can't. Now, the way that this rotation works is you're not going to have a lot of burst threat off of the start. And if you have an off-tank who is going to burst threat, you're probably going to lose aggro. So that's why on some fights I prefer the burst threat opening rotation, and other fights I prefer to get my Shield Block up immediately and start mitigating as much damage as I possibly can, and then line up Dragon's Roar, Bloodbath with a 4 stack of Unyielding Strikes for the highest DPS I can possibly get. Now, I did make a couple errors in the rotation. However, that gives you the gist of it, and I explained it verbally, so you should be able to very easily replicate this. Now, however, the opening rotation is nice, but after that, actually, hold on. Yeah, alright, so this is ridiculously long. It's like already past 20 minutes, and I definitely did not expect that I'd have this much to talk about. So I'm going to make this into multiple videos, possibly 3, because I got a whole bunch I want to talk about warrior tanking. In the next video, I'm going to have stat priority, your rotation, things to do, things to not do. Basically, it's going to be covering your abilities and all that jazz. So I will be making a playlist, so you make sure to subscribe to my channel, comment if there's anything specific that you would like to know about a warrior, and like the video. Make sure that you like the video, alright? Because you liking the video is very important for me, alright? I'm a lonely guy, you know. I ain't got no friends. I ain't got many friends, and I just want to like, that's all I'm looking for. And, be sure to go to my channel and check out all my other videos, you know. Give those likes, you know, share them on Facebook, all that good stuff. Later.